New today, the Wichita City Council approves an amended contract with the Fraternal Order of Police. It gives all union member officers and non-member lieutenants a $5,000 bonus and 13% pay raise. It says the Wichita Police Department is down more than 100 officers. Police Chief Joe Sullivan says the contract reflects what officers deserve, given the responsibility of working in a large city.
To a big department like Wichita is now coupled with a salary commensurate with the workload and the level of responsibility that you will inherit.
The $5,000 bonuses will be distributed by December 22nd, with the 13% raises going into effect January of next year. The recently approved contract amendment now raising some concerns because it comes after inappropriate text messages were sent by WPD officers in 2021. That did prompt a cultural and operational assessment of the police department by a third party. That assessment included recommendations for change within the police department. It's been 9 months since that report was released, and we wanted to know where the city is at in relation to those recommendations. Brandon Stitt looked into this. Brandon, what did you find out?
Well, Rachel, that assessment called the Jensen Hughes report by many has a lot of information. And some people at the Wichita City Council meeting today had concerns that the city isn't moving fast enough on getting those recommendations started.
Hughes.
To talk about Jensen Hughes.
We would like to talk about the Jensen Hughes recommendations.
Jensen Hughes has been on the table for a while.
On the table since March, to be exact. It's the operational assessment of the Wichita Police Department. And Jensen Hughes, the company hired to conduct that assessment. This after inappropriate text messages were sent by officers and questions about how the internal investigation into those texts was handled.
Even before I arrived here, it was made clear to me that it was my responsibility to implement Jensen Hughes.
That 123-page report highlights 54 recommendations for the city and police department. Now, 9 months later, where are we?
There are at least 19 recommendations that have already been accomplished. There are 22 in process. The remaining, many of those do require negotiation with the FOP.
The FOP, the union representing WPD officers, says that is something that is moving forward.
We knew that Jensen Hughes was an issue that we needed to address. And so we've been working together with the city to address those issues.
The police department's online assessment dashboard shows 37% of those recommendations have been implemented. 48% are in progress, with 8% under review.
I have confidence in the majority of the recommendations in Jensen Hughes, and I will see that they were implemented.
Remember that vote today on the contract amendment goes through the end of next year. Now, new contract negotiations are ongoing, which are expected to include more recommendations for the 2025 through 2027 contract.